Welcome back, guys and girls, if you're listening to the Netman Podcast, episode 8 tonight, with a good friend of mine. Aaron, I don't know if you really know him, but we're going to get to know him. Whitney Stephens, great fisherman from Ohio, has fished in a couple of Bassmaster Classics, won a couple BFLs, very well-respected angler here in the home state, and very meticulous angler, loves to hunt, loves to shed hunt, all of that good stuff. Super excited to talk to him. Aaron, let's get this thing rolling. Just wanted to kind of introduce you to our audience. Very well respected angler from here in Ohio that I've become good friends with through my business. Whitney's a two-time Bassmaster Classic qualifier. He's won a couple BFLs. He's won about everything you could win circuit-wise in Ohio. Um, Other than that, just you're a small business owner, family man, just a guy I kind of look up to as a friend. So thanks for joining us, buddy.
Happy
Yeah,
to
I'm
be here,
excited,
man.
man. You've got a pretty decent list of accolades kind of under your name now, and I want to dive into some of that and get to know you a little bit more. And not only do you have all these tournament wins and a few big bucks on your wall, hopefully we can get into that too. Um, but yeah, you're wearing a Blue Rock hoodie right now, and you were part of some development on that side. So hopefully we can talk a little bit about that. Um, But I guess just let's start out and just kind of tell us who you are and where you're from, and we'll go from there.
Well, I'm from a little town called Waverly in southern Ohio. It's basically 60 miles due south of Columbus, right on US 23. And if you ever look up the DNR state record for a spotted bass, it's on Lake White. And I live on Lake White, it's in my backyard. And born and raised here. I grew up 3 miles from here. And actually, the house that I live in, it was like my dream home. Like, I'd be out here fishing young. Like, God, I would love to buy that place. And it just so happened I was getting ready to go to the St. Lawrence River, and I had to put brakes and a caliber on my excursion. And I wanted to take it for a test drive. And the main road, 104, that goes across the dam, had been closed because they were redoing the dam. This was like summer of 2017, I believe it was. So we kind of went the back way around the lake, and we seen a sign for sale, and we just thought, it's just another one of these older, crappy homes that brings twice as much as what they're worth. And so we went and checked it out, and it just so happened to be that house I'd always said I would buy. And I knew, like, as soon as we seen the listing, like, we got to buy that house. And when my wife and I met with the realtor, the guy was actually late, and I was like, we can't show our cards that we want it, but like we want it. And so within like 15 minutes, we were signing paperwork, and it was kind of a done deal with the guy being late because we could sit on the screened in porch and overlook the
He
lake. And
he planned that out,
and
didn't
yeah, I mean, it's always it's weird how things work out because where the house sits, they used to be a cabin here. And I can remember boating as a kid on the lake. My mom always wanted to buy this lot and kind of fix up that cabin and have like a little lake house and, just a place to get away and retreat. And it just so happened that, 20 some years later, I got to purchase
he?
it.
Awesome.
So
Dude, that's dope.
So yeah, so did you grow up fishing Lake White? I mean, is that where you were kind of?
I did. I mean, that's really kind of where I was introduced to bass fishing. My one of my best friends, Mitch Hamill, his uncle had a place on the lake, and he would take us fishing. And he was probably one of the hammers of Lake White. Like we're talking 60s and 70s. And man, I always wanted to go to Mitch's grandma's and hang out with his uncle Gary. And he would take us. He had a boat on a lift, and we would go out and, go fishing and, catfish in the backyard and catch crappies and my dad, he had a little John boat when I was really young, and it got to the point where he would like bring me down to the lake and drop me off, and I would just be out here all day in the trolling motor and just trying to figure out how to catch a bass. But those were the good
Yeah.
old days.
So, how old were you at that point? Like, what's your earliest
So
kind of
I'm
memory of that?
40 now. We're talking like I always kind of remember things by grade. So we're talking like sixth grade, seventh grade. So what are you in the sixth, seventh, like
Yeah.
12 years old, maybe
Perfect
like
age to
11?
get hooked.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Cool. So, uh, where'd you fall into this tournament uh junkie? You're a tournament rat. Where'd you fall into this?
So, I mean, basically for me, so we grew up fishing, but we kind of fished for everything. We took a family trip every year to Lake Erie, like the first week of June, as soon as school was out. And we would walleye fish, we would bass fish, we would just fish for anything. Like my dad liked to crappie fish, but my dad was in a bass club at the atomic plant. He worked at the nuclear enrichment plant here in Piketon, and he was in a bass club. And it was a really good friend of his named Jackson. And Jerry was kind of really into Federation tournaments and the old Red Man series and stuff like that. And one year, and it was, I believe it was seventh grade. My dad would take an annual spring fishing trip with those guys from work every year, and I always wanted to go. He would never let me go. And so that one particular spring, I'm like, Dad, can I go? And he's like, Yes, you can go. So I ended up going and skipping school, missing out on baseball practice, and we went to Watts Bar Lake. And that was my first introduction to like a real bass boat. And I just fell in love with it. All the glitter and the different colors of fiberglass. And I can remember, like a Gambler, and one guy had a Ranger and a
Yeah.
Stratus. You just remember those little things. But they had a big fish pot, and of course, my dad put me in the pot, and I caught the big fish of the trip. It was a
Nice.
612 on a mono spinning rod with like a Berkeley. It was like a cork handled Berkeley rod on a half-ounce electric blue rattle
Nice.
trap in the Tennessee River, like right where it kind of comes into Watts Bar. And I just remember being out there on a flat, and like my dad and his buddy Jerry freaking out when I had that fish on. Drag was just a screaming, it was jumping, and I think probably that fish right there is what really did it for me. I got that big fish
Oh,
pot,
you got a
and
taste of it.
dad actually, we actually, back in those days, we didn't have replicas or anything like that, so we uh, we put that sucker in a freezer, and I had it mounted, and I got that as a Christmas
Awesome.
gift, and that right there, that trip there is what really got me into the
Yep.
bass fishing.
That's perfect. That's a perfect story, man.
Yeah.
So, at what age did you get your own boat and start doing tournaments on your own?
So that I believe that was sixth grade or seventh grade. I believe that was seventh grade. So I want to say my eighth grade summer going into my freshman year, my dad bought an old Kingfisher. I don't even know if you guys know what a Kingfisher is. It was a fiberglass boat with an old Evinrude on it, and we would go to Paint Creek and Rocky Fork and Lake White, and we would take it to Lake Erie. And it was kind of one of those deals like we would fish for one day and work on it for 2 days before we could go back again. And we would try to avoid anywhere we had to idle because it would foul the plugs. And we never could get that figured out. So we had that, probably had that boat for 2 or 3 years. And then my senior year, my dad, my dad bought a 21-foot Triton. And it was just a couple years old from a gentleman. And I went off to college. I went down to Shawnee State in Portsmouth, and I joined the local bass club out of Wheelersburg called the River Valley Bass Club with those same guys that I went on when I was much younger, the Jerry Jackson and crew, and we would we would fish like 8 to 12 tournaments a year, and I would set my college schedule up where I would be able to leave like on Thursday nights or Friday mornings and go practice these places. And man, they was a traveling club. They would go all over. And so, like the first tournament, I fished as a co-angler, and I'll never forget it. I came home, I didn't do very well, and my dad's quizzing me about it and this and that. I'm like, Dad, please let me take the boat. Like, I'll take care of it. Like, you know, you got to just let me take the boat. So he agreed. He let me take the boat, and man, off I went. And we went to Al- Alum Creek. We would go to Seneca Lake. We would go to Yatesville Lake. We would go to Cave Run. We would go to Maysville on the Ohio River. Um, we went a lot of different places within like 2.5 hours. Buckeye Lake, and I can just remember spending time out there in that boat trying to figure out how to catch a bass. And I think maybe that's kind of what led me to having a little bit of success because, you're talking, I graduated high school in 2000 and I automatically went in the bass club. The internet's not really going strong with all this bass fishing content yet. Like, you got Bassmaster Magazine, you got In Fishery,
Yeah.
you got, so basically just you're reading articles like, hey, use this Berkeley power. And it wasn't like it is today where you can get on YouTube and watch, Andy Fryer
Right.
jacking them on a
Right.
spinnerbait at Allen Creek or something like that. It was, hey, you had to talk to an old man that freaking went fishing or whatever to get these little tips and techniques. So I did that for a few years, and I just kind of progressed, and I started competing for Angler of the Year. I believe in like '04, '05, and went into the BFLs and had some success. Did that for a while, and then I just started fishing opens, I believe in like '09, and just been at it ever since.
That's a pretty big leap. Like, how did you make that decision? Hey, you know what?
It,
I'm going to go from these BFLs and I'm going to fork over the money and just go for it.
I was, so for me, I started out in the club, just being a normal guy to win an Angler of the Year. I then went on to like the BFLs as back then we didn't have all these young guys fishing. I mean, Jesse probably remembers his young friends back in the day was old men that had bass boats. Like, you didn't
Mm-mm.
see these young kids out fishing. So, when I was 20, my friends were 40-year-old married guys that went bass fishing on weekends because 18 to 22-year-old kids didn't do that like they do now. So, but for me, I had success at the club level. Then I went to the BFL and I did that for about 5 years and got to the point where I was in the top 10 in the points every year, competing to win. And I just said, you know what? Like, my dream was to always to try to fish the Bassmaster Classic. Like, I'm going to fish the Bassmaster Opens. And I signed up in '09. And the first tournament was at the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland, and it was an April tournament, and I'll never forget. It was cold, it was nasty. And I remember just going to the meeting, and like Greg Hackney and Mike Iaconelli was there, and I'm like, dude, I'm fishing against these guys, and Marty Stone was staying right beside us, and it was just
That's a lot.
it was a little bit of
Yeah.
shell shock, but it was like, hey, I've always treated it like, hey, it's fishing. You're competing against the fish, not the anglers. Like, you have to catch them, and if you catch them to the best of your ability and someone else catches a bigger bag, then hey, maybe you was beat by the angler. But if you just bring in 2 or 3 bass, you wasn't beat by the angler, you was beat by the bass.
Right.
So I've always kind of viewed it that way. But that that first open, I made the final day, and that kind of gave me the confidence, and went on the rest of the year, and I think we went to Lake Champlain that year. seen that for the first time, and just kind of started to get the feel. And I think in 2010, I didn't do the opens. I did the back then they were the Strin series. They call them the Toyota series now, and I fished. I believe it might have been like the Northern Division, and I got sixth in Angler of the Year. And we went to Wheeler Lake for the championship, which was like I want to say November. And I finished in the 20s and had a real good event. And then I just kind of kept kind of fishing them AAA events to about where I'm at now. And just as more experience you get on them big bodies of water and getting familiar and getting comfortable. I mean, I just started getting confidence in my abilities and started developing them and I've kind of always been one of those guys. Like I feel like you need some success at every level before you jump. Like a lot of these people now, they tend to really go all in too quick, and you're gonna get some bumps and bruises, and you need some success to gain
Yeah.
that confidence. And I've always said, like, hey, if you can't beat the guys around the house, you're not going to beat them, in their backyard at a Kentucky lake or a Lake Chickamauga or whatever. So, um, but I always tried to, like growing up, always tried to do like go to Kentucky Lake, go ledge fishing, take a couple buddies, go for a week, um, go Lake Erie, do some deep smallmouth fishing. Go used to go to the Potomac River and do tidal river fishing. Just try to see these places and get like experiences. And I always try to do like 2 trips a year doing that, and like kind of going out of my comfort zone and just seeing what they
Yeah.
were all about.
I think that what you just said, getting out of your comfort zone, uh, and you're exactly right. I think a lot of guys just want the success so bad, so they kind of hit the fast forward button. But if you have the means to do it, I mean, why not? You only live once. I get both sides of that.
Well, I mean, back in those days, it was easier to do
Right.
it than it is now. A nice boat and a nice truck. Gosh dang, you could do it for like $70,000, and now we're pushing upwards to 200,000. Hotel rooms was
Yeah.
50, $60. Now we're three
Yeah.
times that. You're using fluorocarbon line, tungsten sinkers. So, really back then when I didn't have no damn money, I
Right.
could afford to fish more
Yeah.
than
It's
now.
it's definitely it's definitely been commercialized. I mean, everything's you know, people are willing to pay a price to have fun.
You know, you got you got $4,000 trolling
It's
motors, and that's as
crazy.
much as that first
Right.
boat that my dad bought. And it's like, I mean, you hate to say it, but like you need that stuff to
Yeah.
compete in today's
Yeah.
level.
I want to go back and talk about kind of your days in the club. And Jesse and I have talked in previous episodes about how bass fishing, uh, tournament bass fishing can be kind of clicky. But you had mentioned that when you were competing in the club, some of your friends were twice your age. Um,
They were all
yeah.
they
And
were all
so
twice my
did
age,
they
pretty much.
treat you kind of more like a mentor, like they're mentoring you? Or were you just competition and they're
Just
just trying to beat you?
man, just about everybody was really great guys. Always would offer advice. Hey, do you need some bait? Kind of just take you under your wing, look out for you. You know, are you catching any bass? Are you struggling? And then it got to the point where just a few years later, I was kind of returning the favor and giving them little tidbits and hey, maybe you should try this, try that.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, like to this day, I mean, I still talk to a lot of those guys weekly, and you know, I I don't know if I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for some of those
There's
guys.
always some, and I know exactly what you're talking about, man. Because like, as soon as I graduated high school, I didn't have sports anymore. So what me and the old man do? We started fishing Wednesday nighters up at Dillon
Yeah,
Lake, and
yes,
I there was like me and a couple other I called us kids at that point, but the rest of them were all our dad's age or older. I mean, really old. There's some of them old farts, 80 years old out there at those
Yeah.
weeknight derbies, and they almost looked forward to seeing the younger guys. You were kind of who they'd come around, and
Well, I mean, it's a little bittersweet now because I've started to have to attend a few funerals for
yeah,
some of these
for sure.
guys. So I'm 40. I'm 42 now, so I mean, you're talking guys that's
Yeah,
60s and 70s, and you know,
yeah.
but
That also means we're not getting any
yeah,
younger, which
No,
sucks.
we're the old guys at the ramp now.
yeah, I still feel
Same.
young at spirit by looking at the mirror, and you get that when you don't shave for a few days, you get them gray
Yeah,
whiskers
yeah.
and that sort of thing. But
So now going kind of stepping up into the opens, like I know through Jesse some of the relationships and stuff you've been able to build throughout the years. Um, why is that? Like, I mean, are you hanging around the ramps just kind of
I,
doing what the old
I want
timers?
I want to interject just with that question, which is a great thought. But like, I've just been around fishing and a lot of these trade shows, and I'll be completely out of state and meet a guy and talking about this or that in business. And like, I legitimately have never met a guy. I think number one that probably doesn't know Whitney, but everybody likes you as well. So that speaks volumes. But yeah, you must be
well,
great at networking or just friendly.
so like probably the first like couple years in the BFLs, I didn't do that well. I did okay. I mean, I made the regionals, but people people don't really want to be like your friend if you're not catching them. But if you're starting to catch them, everybody wants to talk to
Dude,
you. Everyone
I
wants to kind of
noticed
be your
that.
friend.
I
So
noticed that.
and that's kind of how it led with me. Like, oh man, good job. And then you meet the legendary guy that's caught him for years on Grand Lake St. Mary's, and you end up being buddies with that guy, and it builds. And like the same way at the Opens, like the first few years, like you're not doing that well, and but as time goes on, you start to get some respect from some of these guys, and seeing faces, and at the check line, and then all of a sudden, you're exchanging numbers, and like, oh man, you ever come to Table Rock Lake? Let's go fishing, or whatever. And most people that fish, they're pretty good people, and they got a lot of same kind of common interest, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm a people person. Like I'm usually really friendly with everybody, but I don't let a whole lot of people in
Right.
real close. Like I got buddies, and then I got just a handful of what I call real good
Yeah.
friends. And but yeah, I mean that's kind of how that works. Is people want to be friends with guys that catch some fish, and I can remember like. Meeting like someone was really that helped me in fishing was a kid by the name of Jared Rody, which God, he's not a kid anymore, but he was a Lake Erie hammer, and we were always kind of friendly. And I won't ever forget, we were down at Tanner's Creek, and his lower unit went out, and so he took it down to Dixie to get a lower unit, and he was off the water, so he jumped in the boat with me all day, and it was like two young boxers just exchanging blows, like we were highly competitive. And at the end of the day, we was both kind of like, damn, this guy can fish a little bit. And I was really like blown away by his abilities, and I think he might have been felt the same, and so we kind of hit it off. And that was kind of a real good relationship on catching vertical smallmouth, dropping on them, structure, wind currents, that kind of thing. I owe a lot to him on how to catch um, those big, deep Lake Erie smallmouth when I was young. I mean, God, that was kind of my introduction to what we called dropping on them back in the day on 2D. Now these forward-facing kids, it's totally different. But back then, we was the young guys throwing drop shots on them and watching the
Yeah.
line go down, and picking them off
Yeah.
the graph. So
Now,
Yeah.
I want to come back to the forward facing thing just because it's a great thing to talk about. Um, but I also want to talk about your naming all these lakes that or fisheries that you went to and tried to just get better and grow. Uh, what type of lake or body of water is really your kind of comfort zone or sweet spot where you're just, hey, you know what, I can show up here and I know I'm going to catch something.
Um, like it's kind of rewinding that back. So, my little lake that I live on, it's only like 343 acres. And so it fishes like three different lakes. You got the big end where the dam is. It's clean and clear. It's got docks. You got mid lake, which is where I live. It chokes down a little bit, starts to get riprap, lay downs, less developed. And then that leads into a creek with a big flat, and it's like river fishing. So the big end, there's a hump that I fish. It's got stumps, and you offshore fish. Uh, you can you can skip docks, and so I felt, I can remember an old man saying, like, man, if you can catch them at Lake White all year, you can catch them about anywhere. And there's kind of a lot of truth to that, because you can fish a football jig on a hump, or you can be burning a buzz bait in a foot of water like you would on the river. Um, so back to your question about my comfort zone, I usually like a little bit of a tougher fishery, where maybe the weights are down a little bit, somewhere where I can grind a little bit. And I like it when guys are complaining that they're
Yeah.
not getting bit. And because, with us being in Ohio, that's typical every day. Like, you got to be mentally strong, because hey, you might only get 3 or 4 bites all day. Like, you better focus on that line hopping. Like, man, you missed that bite. Like, there goes your tournament. So you got to make every bite count.
You're exactly right about that. There's one lake here in Ohio that kind of has my number with that same sense. It's Mosquito, because every time you go there, the locals are going to have 18, 20 pounds, and I'm
Yeah,
like, I can't go out here and find 5 4-pounders. I mean, you can go out there and catch a nice bag of
yeah,
fish, but like, I hate lakes where like they're out there and they're going to be caught. I'd love a tournament just
yeah.
like you're talking about. It's going to be a grind. Uh, you got to beat that top 20% of guys that are mentally tough enough to stay in it all day. And I I feel that 100%. But I think that's why Ohio has a lot of good fishermen, because of that. We don't get the whack on them all the time like that.
No, it kind of goes back when I was talking about the fish in the bass club. Gosh, I can remember being out there 10, 12 hours, not having a bite, like not having a clue. And then maybe just getting one little bite and just getting a little bit of an idea, like, oh man, you go from down in the dumps, you hadn't caught anything, like maybe I got a clue. And just, and even if you're kind of doing the wrong thing, if you stay positive and you stay at it, you can usually make it happen.
Yeah.
I've always felt that, like, you can
I
usually
got I
make it
got to
happen.
ask you, Wet, just because uh, I've told a lot of people this. You are a meticulous sob when it comes to your tackle, and I
Yeah.
I gotta know. I've never really asked you this, but like when it comes to um, I'm just thinking like when you came to help me at the expo, I think you dropped $1,000 before you even got to the booth on some of these glides and just other, crankbaits and things. But are you, through all that learning when you had the boat when you were younger, are you a guy that's like, you know, are you going through 6 different colors of a drop shot worm, or are you a guy that keeps it really simple and it's more like I'm not in the right area, or are you where are you at with all that? I'm really simplistic when it comes to colors and stuff. Like if I'm not getting bit, I try to tell myself I'm not around them, or it might be presentation. But I'm just curious of where you are with colors and things like that.
Well, I guess when I was younger, you're trying all the different colors,
Right.
and you got 100 different packs of soft plastics and all. You know, I've really made it a lot simpler. So like you just talk about drop shot worms, like an arobo worm. I like a morning dawn. That's kind of your clear water. I like a prism shad. So that's like the two colors I use in clear. Um, you got like a
Mm-hmm.
margarita mutilator you can use about anywhere, and like a bold bluegill. And so that's like probably like the four different colors that I'd use in a robo. And then when it comes to like flipping baits, you got your melons, green pumpkin, you can't go
Yeah.
wrong anywhere. You always got to have a little bit of maybe like watermelon or something kind of a little translucent for clean water. You got your blacks and, maybe some kind of different variation in your green pumpkins with some silver flake, like your
Yeah.
green pumpkin magics, or you always got to have your
Yeah.
shaddy stuff. But yeah, I mean, a half a dozen collars and it is really it's about all
Yeah.
you need.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And I've made it a lot simpler. Like you don't need every collar of that
Right.
particular soft plastic. It just it takes up space and adds weight to your boat, and it goes slow. And I mean, I've kind of gotten over
Yeah,
that over
with
the years.
age, definitely. I've I've shrunken my categories down a little bit, but um, I don't
Yeah.
know if that's stubbornness or what. But
Well, you kind of you look in that top water box, and you got all these different things. You always reach for the
yeah,
same spook.
Yep.
You always reach for the same pop bar. Like 80% of the time, like which one you're gonna get. Like there's 40 of them that's in there, but just the couple that you're gonna
that's what I
grab
tell.
every time.
Repeat that probably 100 times at trade shows. These guys, the 1099. We have 15 different colors up there, and I tell guys like once you have confidence in a bait, for some guys it's a shaky head, for other guys it's a Ned rig, but in the tournament aspect, it don't care how many you've caught or what you've caught them on. Like the last half hour, 45 minutes, crunch time of that tournament, you're going to have that like number one go to, like your confidence bait in your hand. Um, and it's usually something pretty simple, at least to me. But uh,
I'll never forget. We were at a BFL, and I had ran into Dick Schaefer right at check-in. Like we were done, and we were waiting to get our boats, and we were talking. And Dick had this raggedy spinner bait, and he had a slip sinker, but like you remember the Gator style where you could slip it on like a
yeah, I got
split
a buddy
Yep.
that
shot.
still uses those.
Anyway, so Dick had put this right above the head on the wire of a spinnerbait. And I'm like, Dick, what is that? He's like, man, I want to get that spinnerbait down a little bit more out there on the river. So I clipped that on there. And I'm like, really? He's like, buddy, if they won't eat it, I'm going to make them eat it. And I don't ever forget, like, Dick Schaefer. God, I'd hate to say how many top tens of wins he's got in the MLF FLW format, but like I remember him just like I'll never forget that. Like I'll make them eat it. Like if they don't want to eat it, I'll make them eat it. And that's coming from a guy that's probably one of the most successful uh, BFL guys that's ever
Well,
existed.
and there's a fine line between being stubborn and just throwing the wrong thing all day versus you know that's
You're
what you should be throwing. You just need to either move around or like Jesse said, like go to a different part of the lake or
yeah.
in his
Oh,
case, make it go a little bit
Yeah,
deeper and present the bait where they're at.
that's what's crazy about
right,
bass
right.
fishing and tackle in general. There's a fine line between something that's absolutely ignorant and it being awesome. Like it's crazy. Like you said, what pre-internet, a guy just trying to jump into that world. Cause man, you can pull some strings on some guys, and I see at these shows a lot of people just buy some stuff that you're like, buddy, it's not that complicated. Um, even with the internet now. But uh, it, tackle's crazy, man. It's awesome. I love it, but it's crazy.
As I get like older and more experienced, like I used to love to like tinker with my tackle and organize it, and now you just got all this stuff, and you're just like, ah, man, I got to organize my tackle. It's not as exciting as it used
Yeah,
to be. You know.
yeah,
Well, it's funny because usually right around this time of the year, I go get some big Rubbermaid boxes, pull everything out of my boat, spread it out across the living room, sort
Yeah.
through it. Um, and usually I'll fill up a box of just stuff that I realize I'm just never going to throw, and like I'll give it away or sell it online or whatever. Um, but going back to tinkering, um, let's talk a little bit about the 1099 jig, um, because you had a huge part in that, um, and you helped develop it for a reason. So let's talk about what it is, and then why you guys kind of came up with the idea, and what's so special about it.
Well, I mean, we're kind of in that part of the world where a small jig really catches them. And I know Jesse can relate to this because his dad, him and I had to talk about the old Strike
yeah.
King Bitsy Bug jig. And man, I can remember when that thing came out, we killed him on it. But the bad thing about it was you always lost that one that you needed. It had a crappy hook, but it had a nice little thin skirt. But man, it would catch them, but it didn't have a good hook in it. And that was kind of like my first introduction to a small jig. And I hunted around and tried a lot of different jigs, and probably the 2012, 2013 range, a friend of mine that used to travel around and do the hog troughs got me these little Japanese jigs, like before anybody even heard of them. I don't really want to drop the name because they're good guys, but I started throwing this little Japanese finesse jig that had a tungsten head. And man, it was the deal. It freaking caught him. Once again, you would lose them. You would lose like that fish that you really needed. And weed guard wasn't good, and you really couldn't flip it into the heart of the cover because it would get hung up. And that little jig cost me a trip to the Toyota Texas Bass Classic. Um, I won't ever forget that. It was the last tournament at Table Rock Lake, and they took the top 15 in points. And the second day, I've lost a couple really nice fish on that jig, and I finished 17th.
Mm.
So that was like, man, that jig got me again. And then just a few years later, Bass for a few years had what they called an open championship, and I can't remember how many they took to the championship, but it was the final tournament, and I was in great shape after the first day. And the second day, it's always kind of tougher. We was at Douglas Lake. And there again, late in the day, I lost a really good fish on a bluff on that jig. And it was like September and really, really crappy, kind of that dog days of summer. And I lost that big fish. And like, I'll never forget, I went back and I finished 17th, and they took, I think, 15 or 12. And I just remember looking at the standings like, man, that 4 pounder, that would have did it. I could have went to the damn championship. I took all those jigs out of my boat, and we had a little Airbnb. And my buddy that travels with me, Fox, which he likes that jig, okay? And I'm like, you see these right here? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I am done with these. And I took every one I had, like $250 of the jigs, and I threw them in the lake. And he's like screaming and cussing at me. And I'm like, you don't need them either because you're going to lose bass on them. It was always like you'd set the hook, you get about 6 or 8 good cranks, and they would come off. And so that's kind of what got me thinking, like, man, I need a jig. What do I need to do? So I kind of like really started playing with a lot of different things, and I found out that, hey, a cross eye does really good in cover. Like, it doesn't hang up as bad. And then, I got hooked up with Jesse, and
Uh,
bring my idea with Jesse a little bit, like, hey, I really like to develop a jig, and so we kind of went back and forth a little bit, and it was like, hey, do we do a 2-aught? Do we do a 3-aught? And I can remember he gave me some samples of each, and I went to Lake Erie one spring, and it was marina fishing, and it was that time of year where it's just magical. 7.6 heavy Fitzgerald Okeechobee rod, 17-pound line, 8-to-1 reel, and I went 52 for 53 on bass that were kind of wanting to spawn, and I swung 90% of them. And I told my buddy that's with me, he's like, "We got it right. The 2-aughts where it's at, this cross-eyed, like." And I think we worked on that jig probably close to 2 years.
Yeah,
It went
yeah.
back and forth. I think Jesse was like ready to like strangle me because we would mess with this head, change the
Yeah,
weed
I
guard, and
I
like, I
think I
don't know if I
have
like that hook.
two full weight sets of molds that like I kind of had bought production molds, and then like you know, we thought we had it, and the weed guard. I wanted that thinner weed guard, but then like you showed it to some friends that are really respected anglers, and a couple of them were like, "We got to beef that weed guard up." So I was like, "Well, damn it, I'm going to buy new
Yeah,
molds. Like, we're going to do this right. We're going to do this right." But I want to go back and just um, tell a quick story, just by random chance of how we met, just because I'm thankful for it, and cool little story. But you came through the Columbus Expo, pretty sure with Chris Malone and a couple other buddies, and I think the little triple threat jigs caught your eye, and that was like
yeah,
maybe the first or second year we had gone to a show, and I think you maybe saw value in me being a guy that might be willing to do something a little more on the smaller custom side, but I'm sitting in a tree stand that November, which is probably what 6 8 months after the fact, and I get a message from you on Instagram of the triple thread in your sink, and you just liked the way it looked. And I told you I was deer hunting, and you told me you're a big deer hunter, so you said, "Hey, let's meet up for dinner. I want to talk to you about something." So we met up there, and you told me, you know, what you told me about the jig. I think you explained it kind of like a Cadillac version of a Bitsy bug, which I had already in my head. With Dad being an old Bitsy bug guy, like it was a project I had in mind. So I'm thinking, man, this is a match made in heaven. So yeah, we did go back and forth for a year or two, but there was several buddies throwing that jig, and a little in the process of that year. That was the year I fished all the Buckeye BFLs and had some success. And if you remember, we kind of just called it the Ohio jig, or just calling it the jig or whatever for a while, and then had a buddy come up to me up there at that super tournament at Sandusky. I had a pretty solid finish and exclusively caught all the greens I caught on the 1099. I flipped it all weekend, and filling out one of them forms, and he come up and said, "You need to just call that little jig 1099." And I texted you, and you're like, "That's perfect, man." So there it was. We had it, but yeah, I'm just thankful for the whole story. Just it's cool, man. I'm glad to have that story.
well, I mean, it just happened perfect because you go to a show and you're kind of looking for them little custom jigs. And I mean, gosh, I got a pile of them in there of all these different things. But what probably set me off with your product was you had a lot of different like barbed wire skirts on stuff
Yeah,
that you had tied. And I was like, "Man, this guy, he kind of knows what he's doing here. Like, this is a pretty good quality looking head." And then like, kind of got you thinking a little bit. And the packaging was nice, and had clothing. And then you find out, man, Jesse's an Ohio guy, and it
yeah,
worked
Well,
out
and he's
really
yeah.
just a
well.
likable guy that when you see quality products, he's easy to support.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I'm
it is.
I'm thankful for. I mean, I met Aaron through a show, and I mean, we're best buds now. Have a couple little businesses going together, and it's cool the relationships that fishing gives you, man. It's a bunch of good people, just like you said earlier.
Yeah, I mean, people that I talk to almost on a daily basis, people that I've met from fishing,
Yeah.
and I still got my one really good high school buddy, but like most of my friends now is just people I've met from tournament fishing, and we all get competitive or whatever, but there's a lot of good people out there that has got the same
Right.
passion as you, and
It
it's a
is.
good sport.
I'm really enjoying this phase of me creeping in on 40. I'm getting older. I've got, we've all got young kids, but like I am really enjoying number one, seeing my little business like finally start to get some traction, which it just takes time. Like people
Mm.
think you're making all this money and stuff, but like we're finally, starting to be somewhat successful. But the biggest thing for me is like these college kids that go help us at shows, like seeing them be proud. The two kids I sent to
Yeah,
Knoxville, which Austin Shields from Rio, and then Hunter
yeah,
Kellogg. He's a good buddy's son that fishes for OSU, but I had to send them two kids to Knoxville by themselves, and dude, they'd call me just freaking out every night. Shaw Grigsby was in the booth. He knows you. I'm like, oh yeah, like these, and they were just like so proud to be a part of it, and that makes me feel like 10 times better than anything. It's like the kids think I'm cool, so that's
yeah.
awesome. That makes me
Uh,
feel good.
and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, just really just sewing into the next generation of anglers coming up and letting them be a part of the
Yeah.
things. Because I mean, Knoxville's not a small show. Like
No.
that's one of the bigger, better shows
Yeah,
in the region.
yeah, you talk about scary. I mean that's me jumping from a couple local shows. That's equivalent to jumping into the Bassmaster Opens. Like you get down there, like holy hell, like hope little Blue Rock can stand up, and it takes a couple years, a lot of shaking hands, and a little bit of luck and networking, but like now we go back and we've got great customers down there come looking for us every year. Same with my buddy Nick Folks with his crankbaits. Like we kind of traveled with some of them shows together, and we've just built little followings here and there, and you just got to hustle. I mean, that's all you can do.
Yeah, Tennessee is pretty neat because you got the guys on the east side that's the smallmouth fishermen that wants the net heads and the triple threats and the pink and
Yep.
chartreuse spinner baits, and then you go all the way to the other side to Chickamauga, and you got guys that
Yep.
bass fishing and pretty diverse state if you think about it. And but yeah, that
It,
Knoxville show
yeah,
that's
you got
really
Norris
something.
there and stuff. I'll tell you the first year we went down there, which I think was 5 or 6 years ago, like the smallmouth stuff actually saved my ass on going to the show
Yeah,
because there's beautiful spinner baits and custom crankbaits, but like we had the Neds and the triple threats sold like wildfire down there, and it saved us, or we would have probably bombed it. But the northern stuff that we took down there, it carried us and still does really at that show. So
right.
there's more smallmouth in that area than people think with Cherokee, and you don't think about
Yes,
that quite as much with Tennessee, but there's a lot of browns. So
right there, just 30, 40 miles with South Holston and Watts
yeah,
Bar and Douglas and Cherokee. Awesome fisheries. Like Knoxville wouldn't be a bad place to
no,
live.
no,
You
I
know?
didn't even know it when me and Sid went down to Nickajack for a couple, just get away for a couple days, a couple years ago, and there was guys fishing for smallmouth in there. Like I had no idea.
Yeah,
So I mean, they're around.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
let's talk about this is kind of a two-part deal. Forward-facing sonar and co-anglers. Um, one, let's talk about forward-facing sonar and kind of the impact and kind of everything that's going on with it right now, and what you're seeing on the open level. But then also if there's a correlation with what you're seeing either in co-angler participation continuing at its kind of same level, or is that decreasing? Do you think there's a relationship there between the two? So first off, do you like using forward-facing sonar? Do you have it? Is it kind of something that when you show up at a lake, that's something you're going to rely on typically?
Well, I mean, I've always been one of the guy that jumps on the newest and the greatest technology. Um, Gosh, that's what fishing was built on. I mean, you go back to the old Ray Scott Bassmaster Classic days where they were in 18-foot Rangers with
And a
150 motors, and now they're in 21 footers with 250s. And, we were using the round of Boo Garcia 6,000, 5,600 reels to using 9-to-1 gear ratio reels and, high modulus rods and fluorocarbon line and no more great big sinkers. They're all tungsten. So, like, technology's always been a part of the game, um, but they've never been such a technology that's just had so much
Yeah, it's polarizing big
controversy.
time.
And I think really the issue with it is a younger guy that grew up with it that doesn't have like this encyclopedia of knowledge of fishing his whole life can go out and listen, forward facing sonar fishing, it can be very difficult. Like these guys, it's really good, they got like a built-in rangefinder, and they don't even have to look up, they can cast at 64 feet with a fish swimming to the left and hit it perfect. Like I've been in the boat with some of the best in the world at it. It's not easy, but the older guys, I think they really kind of hate on it because it goes back to, they're out there, they're panning around, they're looking, and they see that log over there on that bluff end and like, man, I bet I could go over there and fish a jig on that. Like I don't like this out here. Looking like, oh, I could go over there. There's wind hitting that point. So I kind of think that's maybe why the older guys hate on it a little bit, because it's hard to forget your roots. It doesn't matter, what it is. Like you was brought up a certain way, fishing a certain way, and then this technology comes out. And let's be honest, a lot of things that we thought we knew about bass was just totally BS. Like this is like blown away my mind. Like, are you kidding me? Like we're catching fish now that used to never see a bait. And it's getting to the point now. Like I was down at Del Hollow a few weeks ago. I went down. I wanted to work on scoping, and I had to come home. I had problems with the business. I only got to fish for like a day and 4 hours. But I can tell you, just from being down there a few years ago to now, those fish are smart. They can feel that beam. They know. It's almost like the guys that's really good at it now will throw at them, and when that bait hits the water and they see it dropping, they'll pan off of it, and then they're kind of feeling for that depth. Like, okay, they got that good feel. Like, okay, that's probably where it's at. Take up that slack a little bit and start shaking. So, um,
Wow.
it's not easy. Am I against it? Not at all. Like the sport was built on technology. Um, I embrace it. It's harder as an older guy because, like I said, you got this memory bank of all these different things. So these younger guys, they can go out there and grind and get 8 or 9 bites doing it, like the Fothergill kid that just won the classic. Like I
Yeah.
was just reading, like he wasn't getting many bites at all. Like where I kind of struggle is like, hey, man, I could go over there and flip in that pocket. Like there's probably one moving up, or, go over this way and fish some offshore brush or whatever. But these younger kids, they don't have that experience, and all they know is that graph. And it's a powerful tool. I mean, it's not easy, but it's kind of like if you could deer hunt with a spotlight and you drove enough country roads in the first week of November in Ohio, and you was very persistent at it, you would get a crack at a big deer. And that's kind of what forward facing sonar is like. If you are good, like, if you can put the bait where it needs to be and you cover enough water, it's kind of high.
It's going to
It's high
happen.
percentage. You know, you're not going down a bank hoping for a bite. When you make a cast, you're throwing at the freaking fish. And I read an article about Easton where he was saying that he had enough of an understanding that he knew the difference between the trash fish and the largemouth, because I guess Richland Chambers is full of all these different trash fish, and he could differentiate the difference between a carp or a sheephead or whatever to a bass, and he said that was one of the reasons that he won that tournament, because he wouldn't waste time throwing a trash fish, and it's pretty amazing to see these young guys, and there's a young kid here at home that I've got to be friends with, and he's only been bass fishing for like 3 years, and he's starting to have some success. And like when we talk, he wants to talk scoping. Like, man, have you seen this minnow? Have you seen this head? And like, it's like
Yeah.
seriously, like he's got an
No,
array,
I
all these
get
different
it. I
heads and
get
all
it.
these different minnows. Where I got
Yeah.
different crankbaits and flat sides. Do you throw a 2.5 or a 1.5 or a flat bait? And so it's really interesting. But like, man, I don't see all the hate for it. Like, guys, yeah, it is kind of difficult for an older guy to stand on one leg and pan around and make that cast. But, then again, if you put your time in and use it, like, man, it's a powerful tool. Like, the name of the game is trying to catch bass. And, like, if you can use that to catch more bass, like, man, I'm all for it. Like, I don't care, what it is. Like, I'm not going to hate on somebody, and you kind of it's divided the sport a
I
little bit,
I
but man, I'm
I
here
I
to
think
stay.
Whit, it's in a weird way, and this might be a screwball theory, but I think it's probably going to end up growing the sport, because yeah,
It
it's
already
it's
happened,
going to kind of evolve like in golf how they have the senior tour along. You see what MPFL did. Well, there's places to
right?
go. I feel like the loss of co-anglers on the side of which if there's one thing I could probably say I can relate to that. I feel bad for the co-anglers in a lot of these scoping tournaments, but I think I think those guys are going to grow the kayak tournament side of because those guys are going to try to go find a place to compete, and I feel like kayak uh, Bassmaster's kind of embracing that. But um, do you agree or disagree with any of that?
Well, like, so I've had a gentleman travel with me for the last several years, named Steve Robbins.
Yep.
Everyone calls him Fox, and last year he pretty much said like, man, I'm done, and he had a couple draws where guys were really scoping hardcore, and the problem is they got that trolling motor up real high, and you're zigzagging. So you cast over here, then he sees one, and he starts going that way real fast, and cut back the other way, and he loses balance. Like, man, he's like, I'm just done with this. Like, it's not any fun, and I get that, and really, I hate to say this, but like, it's gotten so expensive for the guys to do it on the front of the boat. It's almost like, man, you got a guy that just shows up, didn't really practice. Most of them, don't practice. Um, and you kind of got to divide your
Right.
fish up. And I think kind of getting at the AAA level, like it's probably time to get away
Yeah.
from the co-anglers. But man, you hate to see it at the BFL level, because um, it's such a great way to learn. And I think maybe that's how some of these codes should go, is not so much as like, hey, I want to go win, but maybe I'm gonna pay $100 entry fee and get to go fishing with somebody, and like that's way cheaper than a guide, and maybe I'll catch something, but I'm gonna learn
Yeah.
a lot. And back to the young kid I was telling you about, I hooked him up with my buddy Mike, and I remember
Yes.
you meeting
Awesome
Mike,
dude. He
Jesse.
wanted this show to happen. He
Oh,
wanted
okay.
this.
So, anyways, Mike was going to come down and fish with me at Del Hollow, and on his way down, I had trouble with the business, so I had to come home. So I hooked him up with this young guy, and I'm like, man, he's a little wary. He didn't know the kid, and after a couple days, man, he called me like, dude, you know, this was awesome. Like, I really wanted to fish with you, but we scoped for 3 days straight and learned
Yeah,
so much. So I think that's kind of, as a treat it as a learning experience, kind of take the competitive part
yeah,
out of it. And I mean, you can learn a lot if you could just open your eyes and just sit back and take it in. And
for sure.
Well,
it can be a good,
as a
it can be
co-angler,
a
you
good
can
experience.
have that same experience as far as a negative experience with a boater, even that's not live scouting.
Absolutely.
Um, because
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
I've fished a couple BFLs as a co-angler, and I've had some really good draws, and I've had some draws where the guy just has no clue what he's doing at that lake or any kind of pattern, or he's just kind of junk
Right.
fishing all day, and that can almost be just as brutal.
I've I've got a I've got two things here. Number one, I have a theory that will fix the co-angler thing. Take co-angler and make the co-angler side a big bass format. One fish, and it's a big bass tournament for the co-angler. That way, I'm going to go on a chance of, if I get one bite all day, I could win the tournament. That's probably a dumb idea, but me liking to gamble a little bit, my odds of catching one big one might be better than catching a limit of three. Um, but Whitney, I wanted to. You talked about Mike, and I was going to get here eventually, but it's a good spot to do it. This we named this podcast a Net Man just because we're that's a support guy. Net your fish. We're trying to support you guys and whoever we have on here. But saying that, I want you to tell the story about Mike and the Open you won, and how you guys became friends, and that's the perfect story about kind of what this podcast is all about. So can you maybe speak on that Open you won, and just Mike and all that experience?
Uh, so I believe that was the fall of 2015, and going into the final day, I believe I was third going in the final day. So, you get to the ramp, and of course, you talk, the night before, like, yeah, I'm pretty much fishing smallmouth and open water and need to bring this or bring that. And, Mike was there waiting it for me, and we got it in the water. And here's a guy that's just real chill, cool, and like, man, you're fishing for the Bassmaster Classic today. Like, you got a real shot. So like, yeah, man, appreciate it. Well, let's go get them. And so, we go out, and the day started off pretty well. And like the third fish I caught, my little prong on the Rapala scale that holds them, I caught so many fish that week it had broke. Okay, and I was really handling a lot of fish, and I didn't have an extra clip. And so that tournament, it got really rough as the day went on, and that was before spot lock trolling motors. So I would hook up with a fish, and Mike would put his pole down, and I would like really try to stand on the trolling motor and fight these fish, for I wouldn't get off the spot. And so when I would land my bass, Mike would have the call beam with two call buoys. He'd have the smallest one in his hand. We'd clip the fish I just caught, help me balance it. We're in the waves. Like, yeah, I think that's going to help. That's not going to help. Get it back in the water, then I could run back up on the trolling motor real quick instead of having to idle to get back on the spot. And I'll be honest with you, I think I only won maybe by like a pound and a half. But with him helping me call and helping me throughout the day, like, I'm not sure if I would have won that tournament without him. Because, most co anglers, you're on your own, which I don't blame them. But Mike seemed like pretty quick, like, man, if we can hurry up and call these fish, we can get back on the spot and catch more
Right.
bass. But, that day I had a cranking battery went dead, and Mike was back there helping me try to rewire a trolling motor battery for a cranking battery. And we had a
Oh
jump
God.
box, and I made a really good friend for life. And it was just from an 8-hour day
Yeah.
on the water, and pretty cool. Like he went to the Gunnersville Classic with me at in 2020, and him and Fox was kind of like my caddies and stayed, and they went to Nickajack fishing while I was fishing the tournament. But yeah, hell of a guy, and it's amazing the people that you meet out, fishing these tournaments,
Right.
and cool, pretty cool, and it
Yeah.
all worked
I
out.
Did he
Go ahead,
did he
Aaron.
basically just like sacrifice his tournament day to support you and helping you see success, or uh
Yeah, yeah. I honestly think that, like, he had a good day. He caught a good bag of fish. The man probably could have got 10 more fish catches in if he wasn't back there, digging through that live well, getting the smallest one out. And but that was what was so awesome about it, because, like I said, you got to get the fish out, then you got to look for the smallest one. And like Mike would have the live well shut, the call beam, hand on the small one with the extra clip the fish, beam it real quick.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
what do you think? And we're in big waves and this and that. I mean, it gets stressful. It's final day. You're in bad weather. Uh, there's some pictures floating around out there, like big waves coming over my bow. I mean, that was back in the days where you had to stand on that damn trolling motor. There wasn't no spot lock, and so yeah, he did. He kind of sacrificed his day for me, and it's something I
that's
won't ever
Yeah.
incredible.
forget.
Yeah. Mike's a
Yeah,
great dude. I had the opportunity to sit down with for dinner with Whitney and a few others, but and Mike stays in touch with me now. It's cool. He'll shoot me a message. He messaged me a couple weeks ago. He said, "I'm driving to North Carolina. Where can I find your podcast? I love it." And he said, "You got to get
yeah,
Whitney on there." I said, "Don't worry, I'm all over it, buddy." So,
yeah, Mike. Yeah, he's a
yeah,
small business guy. I mean, he runs a construction company, and they build homes, and he deals with the general public every day. And I mean, he gets it. Like he's a
yeah,
pretty sharp guy,
yeah.
and a hell of a
Good
person.
dude. Good dude for sure. I think we could have hopefully we can get you on again, Whit, and uh, talk about just the whole experience of fishing the Bassmaster Classics, and I we could probably go all night. I know we all have little kids, but I'd love to hear more about Toyotas and all of that. Uh, but I do want to ask you before we wrap up tonight, just because I think we both all three can agree we like shooting deer. Give us one good deer hunting story, maybe your biggest buck or one you're proud of, or let's sneak something in here.
Um. Okay, so it was a deer. It was it was 2015, the year I won the Open at Erie. I had a deer that I named Freak, and the year before he was off limits, and he had a double beam, and the beam kind of came down and curled out, and he was like 160s. And I didn't hunt him, didn't want to hunt him, knew right where the deer lived, and I saved that deer. And so 2015 rolls around, I'm getting pictures of him in the soybeans, like he's right where I want him. And that summer, I shot my bow more than I had like my entire life. Okay, and I could hit a quarter at 50 yards. Like it was
Dialed in.
unbelievable. So the first the first sit on this deer, well, I should say second. The first sit, I was hunting the soybeans where I was getting pictures of him in a soybean field, and I didn't see him, but I had a 170 walk, like a mid 170s walk
Oh
20
my
yards in
god!
front of me. Never, I never seen that deer ever again. Like to this day, I'm like, what the hell happened to that deer? But so anyhow, I set up on this deer, and it was on a scrape, and this deer comes walking in like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and believe it or not, I was pretty calm and cool. And the deer comes in. He was right at about 35 yards, and I shoot. and I missed the deer. Like I totally whiffed and missed the deer. Okay. And I was convinced I had slipped in a creek that morning. And I thought maybe I bumped my sight. There was a little creek I had to cross and it had real slick rocks. And I'm like, well, maybe I bumped the sight. So I went home. I fired that bow. It was like 34 yards. I got the little dial and I'm smoking them. So I got to talking to my dad and he's like, the deer was a little bit downhill. He's like, I bet you didn't bend at the waist and you dropped that bow and your anchor point was off. And you know what? He was exactly right. Because right after he told me that, I put a damn climbing tree stand up in the tree in the yard, climbed up, had my wife grabbing my arrows, and he was right. I wasn't used to shooting at that angle, and I just shot over this deer's back. So I'm like sick. Like, here's a deer, biggest deer of my life. And I hunt the deer a few times, and I don't see him. I'm not getting pictures of him. And there was like this old 8-pointer, like it was a big 8-pointer, but just kind of like a goofy rack. And I can't remember, we had a particular name for him, but it's not appropriate, but it's DH. So you guys can kind of use your imagination because like here comes DH. Like you always see this deer, right? So um, I I finally get a picture of my buck. Like, okay, he's back. He was working that scrape, and like the next picture is a coon
Oh
buck,
God.
and then like 2 pictures later is a guy with a damn spotlight on his head, and they had literally ran this deer out.
Ugh.
Okay, and I'm like, that was probably like the first year I had cell cams, and like, oh my God, like I'm sick about it, right? So I don't see the deer for a few days. Don't see the deer. So my buddy Jacob Wheeler, he comes over to go deer hunting, and I'm like, buddy, you're gonna go kill DH tonight. That sucker. I see him in there every time I go. So we go in there, and I got a camera, and I'm like, I'm gonna take my bow just in case that big one shows up. Like, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take my bow. Like, we're not gonna see him. I'm gonna take it just in case. So we're set up, and we got a double set in this tree, and man, down way over the bank, there's a deer. I'm like, man, it looks like a pretty good one. So I tell Jacob, I'm like, get ready. So Jacob kind of stands up and he's waiting, and I pull my binoculars up. This deer gets in sight, and it's my big deer. It's Freak. And, dude, I'm like, I failed. Like exact words. So I got this big freaking camera. Like back then it
Right.
wasn't small. Like they are now. And like this deer is coming to that damn scrape. And I'm like, my God, like this is happening quick. So I get stood up, and I never could like give the camera off to Jacob. So I stuffed this camera down in my damn like jacket on. And so I'm like puffed out, and the deer comes over to that scrape, and he doesn't really have an idea what's going on. And he walked right back up to where I'd shot at him, about 10 days prior. And I
That's
smoked him.
awesome.
And tell my buddy Jacob Wheeler to sit down, that he couldn't shoot my big deer. And it was pretty awesome. Like the deer died in a really bad holler. And a couple of my buddies came, and my brother actually, I don't know how he did it. He took a 4-wheeler over a damn cliff, and we had to put the deer on the front rack, because if we put it on the back, he would have had to ride like a wheelie. But we actually had to hold the front of the damn 4-wheeler down so he could get out. And just a
That's
cool,
awesome, man. That
cool
that
scenario.
is a good story. Is Jacob's
I'll show
is
you.
it,
Let me take this phone
let's
over
see him.
here.
Is Jacob still mad at you about that?
Holy cow!
Like he
That's
totally
that's
understood.
awesome.
So like here's that double beam,
Wow, he is a
and
freak,
one 192 and 4/8 to my day. That's the biggest
man.
deer that I've killed. And my
And
buddy Jacob was on the damn stand and witnessed it go down. And like soon as that arrow went through that deer, he's like, "Man, you smoked him." And I remember to tilt it a little bit at the waist, and not drop my
Right.
anchor point. But
That's
Well,
that's it, man. And you know what? Jacob was hunting that deer that we called DH a couple more times, and the neighbor killed him opening morning of gun
daggone it.
season. So,
well, for those listening,
but he ended up,
I
I
mean,
think,
this deer, his right side is just a mangled mess of antlers, and he's truly a freak.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty cool, pretty
Yeah.
cool deer.
I I love it, man. You get you're just like me, man. You get super fired up about deer hunting, just like fishing. It's a good balance for me. And come fall, I don't want to say I'm burnt out on fishing, but I'm ready to sit in a tree stand and with business, it's a good little reset. Just getting out there in the quiet and kids are starting to hunt. My oldest and uh it's a I love the fall. I love chasing deer.
It's a really good break, and I've kind of got to the point where I got like a lot of equipment to farm. So like I'll farm like smaller stuff for deer hunting and plant
Yeah,
beans and plant corn, and I just get a lot of
yeah,
satisfaction out of it. And it kind of hurts that springtime fishing a little bit. You're planting, you're spraying, but man, does it pay off come January. The deer I killed this year was a really old deer that would never show up in daylight, and we got them single digits. And I killed that deer the night of the national championship game. And if anybody can remember that, it was I think January the 20th. It was like
cold.
1 degree that evening, but man, he couldn't resist that standing cornfield. I went and bush hogged a little bit of corn, and he came just a little bit before dark, and that extra cold weather and that work, and all that extra time, and so that's cool. I really like the deer hunting. I'm really passionate about it, and like you said, it's a good break. It's a good kind of like reset. Like you've tournament fished hard all year, and it's a lot of good to sit in a tree and just kind of reflect and
I agree.
take it all in.
That sounds like a hell of a night to be a Buckeye fan.
Yeah, it was like, and I home. I had my wife pause it, but I got home just in time for
Nice.
kickoff. So, and the sad thing is, I was invited to go to that game, and I'm like, hey, we need to know if you're going to go or not. Like, we got a ticket for you, and I'm like, well, it depends if I kill him Sunday or not. That was a Monday. Like, man, well, the deer didn't come Sunday, and I knew like Monday was cold and Tuesday was kind of warming up. So I only had like maybe one other opportunity looking at the long term. So I'm like, man, I don't want to pass up that opportunity, and my
That was
God, it worked
Right.
out,
dedication there.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Now, if we could just get our wives to understand why we do this crazy stuff for deer and fish and the stuff that goes through our heads, I can't even explain it sometimes, but it's just an obsessive. Um, but I think all our wives understand that we need it to to be us. So that's a good thing.
Well, those days that you got them bad days at work and you're grinding, I mean, you got that in the back of your mind, like, hey, I got to make some money or I got to get this done because I'm going fishing, and that helps you get through
Yeah.
them tougher days. And you know, you, whatever it may be, you got to have some kind of passion in life. Like you got to have a little bit of balance, and you got to have something to look forward to. It can't always be about
Right.
work.
Right.
Uh,
It is 110%.
so has your season kicked off yet? Um, and are you fishing anything local here in Ohio, or are you just doing the opens?
I just fished. I just fished my first tournament of the year with my buddy Chris Malone. It was a big money tournament down at Yatesville Lake in Louisa, Kentucky, and it was a 2 day deal. And they only let 50 boats in it. It was like a $450 entry fee, and we ended up sixth place, and we lost the second place fish 4 times in 2 days. And it was pretty tough fishing. Like I'm still aggravated about it. Like I lost a really good fish the second day on a shad rap off a stump. I actually hit the fish and I had it, and somehow I don't know if like the stump had like a branch or something got lodged on it, but it got hung up and I lost the fish. And then my buddy Malone lost a couple good ones on a spinnerbait. And man,
Mm,
I'm still like, we let second place was 3,500 and we got sixth, which was 1,000. So it was a $2,500 deal.
mm.
But
Yeah, that hurts.
good buddy Coach Jenkins, they actually won the tournament. They blew everybody away, and so it wasn't all bad. You know, some good buddies won, and they actually caught some fish each day on 1099
Yeah,
jigs. So kind of makes
yeah,
it good.
yeah. There's a few of them boys liking them 1099s. Them some buddies the fishing the BFLs. I'd make sure to leave a couple with them. And having you and down there, it all helps, man. It all helps for sure. If you can get them to throw it, they seem to like it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah,
So are you
yeah.
doing the opens again this year?
I'm not fishing the opens this year. I just had some dates with some prior engagements, and they didn't really line up. And Bass came out with that new federation format, and I signed up to fish the one at the James River, and the other one's out of Monroe, Michigan on Lake Erie. And it's basically if you get a top 20, you go to the national championship. And the national championship, they take the top three finishers to the Bassmaster Classic. Um, so I'm like, that's kind of interesting. Like instead of having to go to regionals and jump through all these hoops, they kind of got it set up with like a limited amount of practice and no info. Um, and like 10-day off limits on the bodies of water. So
That
it's pretty cool. I'm gonna try it, and hopefully we can be fishing
sounds
the opens next year.
sounds like that's a good little. I mean, you almost won another open on the James, so sounds like it could work out
Yeah,
good for you.
I like James. It's gonna be during the spawn, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be pretty aggravated if I don't make a top 20 at the first one. I'm hoping I can get a top 20 and get out of the way, and then maybe gamble a little bit, and make a long run at Erie and try to
Hell
win that
yeah,
one. So.
yeah, cool. Any Toyotas this year? Anything?
No, just those two Bass Nations, and then I think Malone and I were fishing a little circuit that we help
Jaw
sponsor here
jackers,
called
yeah.
the Jaw Jack.
Ben texted me while we were on here
Good,
tonight. Yeah.
yeah. We uh we actually got to go to Cumberland here in a couple weeks. It's for the championship from last year, and
Are you
looking
guys
forward
going
to
down
that
to
one.
Chick for Phil's TBX? Did you fish those last year?
Uh, we we
Okay,
didn't fish it last
gotcha.
year, so I wish
Yeah.
I would, but I know a bunch of guys
Yeah,
getting
I'm
ready to
I'm going to
go.
try to jump in enough of the TBXs this year to it'd be just a good excuse to go down to Chick in the spring. So,
Right?
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
I'm going to try
yeah.
to fish enough of them. I think he lets you buy in if you don't get enough anyways. So,
I think you can maybe buy
yeah.
into, but man, Phil does.
He
He
does.
pours
I
his
like
heart
Phil.
into it.
We're actually linking up with him with Blue Rock and helping out, which we help Ben out too, and a few others, and a lot of high school. I mean, you can only give so much, but I try to. I'm just upfront with everybody and offer what I can offer. I'd love to associate with all the guys. We've all become buddies, being tournament rats over the years. So,
Well, and
um,
Phil's been a huge supporter of the Great Lakes Fishing Expo too.
yeah, he
Give him a little shout
supports
out for
us
that.
Yeah.
there too, for sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
so Whitney, I guess one thing, if you could leave with the listeners, I mean, you cut your teeth on the club level. You've fished at the highest and biggest tournament that you could ever fish. Um, what advice would you give either the young guys or the club guys, just aspiring to do what you've done?
I would say probably the biggest thing that I've kind of learned is like always be positive. don't be around negative people. Like if someone in your life is negative and they're always complaining or down, get those people out of your life. Stay positive and hang around people that's better than you. Like maybe you'll want a little bit of what they got, and maybe you can learn something along the way. And don't be afraid. Like don't get comfortable what you're fishing. Go out of your comfort zone. Fish against better competition, and just show up to a local lake on a Wednesday night to a lake you've never been in and jump in an evening tournament. Like that's kind of how you develop those instincts, and that's probably my biggest thing is positivity and hanging around people that's like minded and maybe better than you.
Great advice.
Yep, definitely.
Great advice.
I'm gonna have to cut the news to my wife that I'm gonna have to jump in some weeknight tournaments now.
Dude, there's nothing better than a weeknight derby.
Oh, yeah, and it keeps
Yeah.
you sharp a little bit. Like we got a local one here on Wednesday nights, and it gets pretty competitive. And I try to fish as many as I can. I
Yeah.
really enjoy it.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, kids are really involved in things right now, so I'm not getting to fish as many, at least in the early part of summer. But it's all good. That balance thing, which it's coming for you as
That
well.
that's what I got a 6-year-old, and we got jujitsu 2 nights a week. We got baseball starting, and he likes to go fishing and he likes to
Yeah,
do things. So like, and I'll be honest, like I'm getting to the point like I don't like being gone for that 8 days at a time now. Like I got a little boy that kind of really
yeah.
depends on me, and like he's upstairs right now sleeping in his gym clothes. So we've been going to the gym with some buddies at 5:30 in the morning. So I get him out of bed, and like this morning we hit balls off the tee, and we go over and give him tips, and then
Heck
pump some
yeah.
iron, and he runs laps around the gym, and then we leave there, and he goes straight to school, and then picked him up from school, and he went to jujitsu. So like
You
we're
better
getting
watch.
busy, and
You're gonna be real busy when he starts fishing too.
oh yeah. I've already got him a little boat. I actually got to do some rigging on it, but got him a little John boat with a 15 horsepower
That's awesome.
Yamaha, and
Yeah, he's set.
put it all there and some lithium batteries with a scope, and I'm gonna turn him loose.
He's gonna be up at
Years like
5:30 to hit the lake
me on
instead
this.
of the gym here soon.
Right.
I hope the
Yeah.
opportunity will be there for him. We'll
Oh,
just say that.
it's
I just, I just hope he's passionate about something. If it's fishing or hunting or playing sports or whatever it may be, you just
yeah,
hope he finds some passion.
that's exactly where I'm at with it. I played a lot of sports, and I ain't saying my old man was as hard on me as some people could, but like as I became an adult, I always told myself whatever my kids are passionate about, I'm going to support. So, but
Yeah.
either way, it's awesome, man, and I uh I genuinely appreciate your friendship. You're an awesome dude, and I appreciate you coming on here tonight. You told some awesome stories, and hopefully we can get you back on here at some point and maybe just talk in specific about the whole experience of the Bassmaster Classics, and that's just a whole deal in itself. So um, I don't know, man. Just thanks for coming on tonight.
And I appreciate it. Come back anytime, man. I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. So
you've got an open
um,
invitation anytime. So
Yeah.
yep.
go ahead. We'll do it again.
Yeah, we
We'll
appreciate
do
you,
it
man.
again.
All right. We'll see,
All right,
Whit.
guys.
We want to thank everyone that tuned into this episode. Please make sure you follow us so you can hear more episodes just like this one.